Right, welcome back to the channel, guys. Today we're going to be talking about exercises again, and this time we're not going to be talking about exercises that I do and that I've been doing on the progress season. We're just going to be talking about the best exercises that I think everyone should be doing when they're new to the gym, getting into the gym, carrying on with the gym. Just like these are the most important ones to have in your splits, your training, whatever you're doing right now. These are important workouts. These are important exercises to have in those workouts, and these are the ones you really need to focus on progressively overloading and gradually increasing the amount of weight you do on the bar, dangling off you if it's a weighted exercise, on the machine if it's a machine, the size of the dumbbells. These are the exercises that need to go up and up and up and up in weight as we progressively overload. When I say progressively overload, I do mean the double progress method of progressive overload, which is where you'll select a rep range. So let's say you say the rep range is 5 to 10, and then you'll select a weight where you can do the bottom end of that rep range. So say you choose the rep range of 5 to 10 reps. On bench press, you do 100 kilos, you get 5 reps, and then you get next week 5 reps, and then the week after you get 6 reps, 7 reps, 8 reps, etc., until you get the 10 reps of that rep range. So you've gone from the bottom end of the rep range, the 5 reps, to the top end of the rep range, that 10 reps. And then once you've been able to get that 10 reps 2 weeks in a row, or for 2 sets in a row, you then increase the weight back down to a weight where you can only get the 5 reps at the bottom end of the rep range. So you'd go from 100 kilos to maybe 110, and maybe you get 5 or 6 reps, and then you rinse and repeat, and you go up 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 reps. Once you get 10 reps 2 weeks in a row, or 10 reps 2 sets in a row, I'd say is like the standardized way of doing it. But lots of people just do it off of feel and vibes, and they kind of just they'll make it up as they go along, in terms of like, oh yeah, that felt light and I got loads of reps on that weight, so I'll up the weight. Or they say, oh, that felt good, so I'll try. But I'd say just look at standardizing it, maybe the way I described. You like the double progress, maybe your apps, whatever workout you're using. I know Strong does it, and some other apps do it, where they say you can increase the weights and the reps, and as and when to do that. But that's what I mean by progressive overload, and this is the exercises. I think those are the best to work on, because over time, lifting more weights with these exercises, progressing these exercises, will progress your physique. So I'm going to say exercises, but I might apply that more to movement patterns in general, because some exercises people don't like, but they like exercises that other people don't like, personal preference. But both the exercises are the same movement pattern, so you just choose one or the other, and you'll get the same sort of benefits, because it's the same movement pattern, it's the same muscles, it's the same mechanism. It's just maybe a little bit different and a little bit more of what you like. So the compound lifts, we're going to start with those. These are the ones that progressive overload on you can do for the rest of your lifting career. There is no limit to the amount of weight you can have on the bar. These are plate loaded ones, big boys, and they will absolutely blow you up. So we're talking about things like the deadlift. If we're looking at a movement pattern, in terms of a hip hinge, a movement pattern that is like a deadlift. So any exercise that is like a deadlift will be saying, go for that, choose that, progress that. And you can also look at from mesocycle to mesocycle, or as and when your training allows, you can change and do different types of deadlifts. But types of deadlifts, we'd have like a standard barbell deadlift, we'd have a Romanian deadlift, so where you're focusing on the negative. We'd have a stiff leg deadlift, which is a bit like a Romanian deadlift, but you get the bar to the floor instead of keeping that tension. We'd have maybe a trap bar deadlift if you're a fan of more of the athletic movements. Trap bar always feels quite like a jumping leg one as opposed to a back thickness one, but it's still a great exercise, trap bar. You can look at doing your deadlifts with you raising yourself up, so deficit deadlifts where you stand on plates or pads. And then you could look at the other way around, where you do raised deadlifts. So you look at lifting the bar up so it starts at a higher point, or maybe going from a deadlift to a rack pull. So it's an even higher point from the starting movement. But yeah, you've got those sort of things: deadlifts, Romanian deadlifts, stiff leg deadlifts, trap bar deadlifts, rack pulls. Those are all the same sort of movement pattern of a hip hinge or a deadlift style. So put those in, put some weight on the bar, progressively overload, and you'll build a great posterior chain, very thick, very full. And as long as you aren't ego lifting, you're following proper progressive overload, and the technique and the form doesn't break down at the end of the reps, and your back isn't rounding excessively, you should be all good. So once you've sort of mastered the way of bracing your spine and your back and your core, and you get the form down, the deadlift is something you can just hammer out, constantly make progress with. So another compound, a bit like a deadlift, is going to be a squat, a movement pattern like a squat. So that could be a barbell squat that you progress. It could be a front squat that you progress. It could be a safety bar squat, if you know, the one where you go boom and boom like a backpack. That one's a little bit different for some people. They don't like it, they do like it. You end up sometimes leaning forward and doing a bit more of a good morning to do a barbell squat, but a safety bar squat even, but it's very good fun. And if you've got issues with shoulder mobility, getting the arms behind the back like I do sometimes, the safety bar is a lot easier because it's right there like a little backpack. And the same with the front squat. If you've got issues with there, you can do a safety bar front squat where the bar's facing the other way, and it feels a bit weird sometimes, but if you like the feel of that, the safety bar front squats, so you've got those. You've got hack squats, which is the same movement pattern as a squat, but it's just a bit more fixed, and you can also reverse band it, so you can have a lighter load at the bottom, less stress on your knees, and then you can really drive through, and the weight gets heavier and heavier and heavier as you get to that top end. So you almost get the benefits of a light bottom and then a heavy top, and the lockout is obviously the hard part, the easy part that you can do more weight with. So it makes sense to do a reverse banded hack squat. You've got like a Smith machine squat if you're looking at something braced, but you're not a fan of the hack squat, or the hack squat at your gym isn't to standard, and then you can obviously reverse band a Smith machine squat as well if you want. So those are the sort of squats you could look at. You could look at something like a goblet squat, as well as a front squat for an athletic side of things. But a squat movement pattern and a squat movement pattern or a squatting exercise is not the same as a leg press. Those are not the same movement pattern. A lot of people say they'll just replace a squat or a hack squat or a front squat with a leg press or some kind of machine leg press. But yeah, like a leg press and a squat are not the same movement pattern at all, because in a squat, I don't know if I can get my hands to demonstrate, but in a squat, your torso stays straight and your knees bend and you go down. Whereas in a leg press, that hinge is much more acute. The angle between your, I don't know how we would describe it, your stomach and your thighs. In a squat, your stomach is staying pointing that way and going down, whereas in the leg press is cheating. It's not the same movement pattern as a squat. But if we're gonna list out the exercises you can progress, if you're gonna progress your squatting movement patterns and your squatting exercises, you can also progress your leg pressing and those leg press movement patterns as well. So if you've got like a pin loaded leg press or a plate loaded leg press or anything like that where your thighs are coming towards your torso as opposed to your torso going downwards, those are also great to progress the leg press. You can see people do a lot of plates on those and get some very big legs. But I'd just say a tip with the leg press is I'd start a lot lighter than you'd think, because a lot of people will just load up the weight on a leg press and then they'll end up doing whatever foot position they can just do the most weight with, and it's like an ego lifting thing. With the squatting, it's a similar thing where some people will just like default to whatever foot position and bar path and depth and speed that just lets them do the most weight. But if you're really training for a specific thing, the squats need to be like a novel all-round leg builder, and the leg press the same thing. So you need to look at doing something that actually feels like it activates your legs the best, as opposed to something that just gets the most weight. So a lot of the time on a leg press, I'll see people do I'd call it like a belly bash kind of leg press, where the way they load up the weight, they put their feet as high as they can, and then they get it so that their thighs, all that meat of the thigh is just smashing into the stomach area, and they get limited range of motion, and they get some leverage by literally pushing a fatty thigh into a fatty stomach, and they press out like that, which like somebody who's a little bit more thin, a little bit leaner actually can't do. So they end up having this weird thing where they have very little range of motion because of the stomach and the thigh, and then somebody thin tries that and they've got like an infinite amount of range of motion and they can go until their knees hit their head kind of thing. So just in terms of the leg press, actually make sure you feel it in your quads, because a lot of the time I see a leg press, people do it and they get off of it and they're not even like limping or sore or anything. It's just like all backside. And I think we should just avoid that. We should train the leg press with lower feet and more range of motion, and as much range of motion as we can, really. We want a massive arch between those ankles and the backside, as opposed to what some people do where there's like a very tiny range of motion between the ankles and the backside, and they do what I would call like a belly bash, or like a, I don't know, it just something about it irks me, because you see people load up like an absolute shed load of weight and they're like, how much can you leg press, Brody? How much can you leg press? And it's like, well, you know, apples for apples. I'm not jamming my thighs into my stomach to then like force up, you know, just a bit weird. But yeah, everyone does it. I'm sure you probably might be a victim of it as well, but same with the hands on the thighs, hands on the knees that people do on the leg press. Just cut that out, just do it properly. Same with the squat, same with the deadlifts. It's all about proper form and execution, and if you can actually feel the muscles we're trying to train. But another big compound that we're going to look at progressing would be the pull-ups. So yeah, we've gone a deadlifting movement pattern, a squatting movement pattern, a leg pressing movement pattern, and now a pull-up. So I know people say you've got like a vertical row and a horizontal row. They're often movement patterns that are brought up for back, but I'd also say that a pull-up as a movement pattern is important, as opposed to just a vertical row where you're bringing the weight towards you. You're actually bringing yourself up. It's just a different feeling. It's a different vibe. And if you get better and better and you progress and you start doing weighted pull-ups with more and more weight, there's sort of like no, you know, sky's the limit kind of thing. Same with the squats and the leg press and the deadlift, of how much weight you can have dangling before it becomes impractical. And by the time you're complaining about how hard it is to have 3 plates dangling off you on a chain to do pull-ups, you probably are enormous. So that's where we're looking. Weighted pull-ups are a great way to build the back thickness. They're a great way to build the forearms, the grip strength, the biceps, because you've got to yank yourself over a bar properly, you know, chin up and over. And it's just a great way to build those biceps. And you can do different kinds of pull-ups, the same movement pattern you can do, obviously, with the thumbs that way, thumbs this way, so pull-ups and chin-ups. You can do it with a band to help you as well on the bottom end, make it a bit lighter, make it a bit easier. You can do it weighted. You can then, if you can't do it with body weight yet, there's the pull-up machines, where it's got the assisted pull-up machines, and then in the same vein, if we're looking at another movement pattern we can progress, obviously we have a vertical row or a vertical pull, where you would be something like a lat pull down, or a plate loaded vertical pull, where your arm starts above your head and it ends nice and tucked with your hand on your chest. So we'd look at like hand above head, hand down to chest sort of thing, which is a little bit different to a pull-up. It's very similar. I do see a lot of people just say, oh, I've got pull-ups in my program, but I'm just going to do lat pull down. And then people are there like, I've got lat pull down, but I'm just going to do pull-up. They're slightly different because of the bracing and the free flow and the form, and where the bar starts and where the bar ends in both cases. So if you've got 2 back days and you want to do lat pull down on both, maybe do weighted pull-ups on one and lat pull down on the other. But the horizontal row is the other movement pattern for the back. So instead of a vertical row, we've got a horizontal where you're coming from in front to back, and that's less latty, that's more backy. And that's great as well. There's like, I mean, in terms of vertical pulls, you've got lat pull downs with any which grip you like, personal preference. You can change that up as and when your mesocycles, you know, you can mix up the training a bit, but keep progressively overloading the movements, not swinging around. You've got the plate loaded versions where your hand starts up and does like that. Those are sometimes hit and miss with whether it's too heavy or too light at the bottom or the top of the movement, but there are some really good ones out there. I'm trying to think of any more vertical pulls that I've thought of and seen, but it's usually pin loaded or plate loaded. It's like a lat pull down or one where you put plates on the side and the plates start at the bottom and end at the top. But the horizontal rows, you've got like a bent over barbell row, you've got like a bent over T-bar row, you've got machines that are fixed and also do that. But if we're looking at really like which ones I'd say are the ground workers, as in the most important ones, because obviously we've talked about movement patterns, we've got, you know, deadlifts, squats, leg presses, pull-ups, vertical pulls, and then the horizontal pulls is obviously a movement pattern. Like any exercise where you start in front and then behind is a horizontal pull. But the ones that are really going to beef you up and build you up are the bent over rows, the barbell bent over rows, because you're adding plates and there's no limit to the amount you can row. So I'd look at opting for those. Those are the real builders there as you get more and more weight. And if you're not a big fan of those, you've got T-bar rows, you've got the machines which are the equivalent. But if you can enjoy a bent over barbell row and you can work the form out on that and it doesn't destroy your lower back, then that's probably the A-OK number way to do. And also, if you're not a fan of the barbell rows and it just feels a bit wrong, you've also got the dumbbell bent over rows, which is still a horizontal movement pattern. It's just instead of it being bilateral, it's unilateral, so you do one arm at a time. So I know that seems like, if we're talking about like which ones build the most size, you'd think it would all be bilateral, 2 at once, sort of big movements, but unilateral things can build your back just as much as anything else, if not more, because you can have more of a stretch and a twist, and you can focus a lot more effort, like mentally, if you're doing 1 at a time as opposed to 2 at a time, because it's half as much work to do. So the dumbbell bent over rows, but I don't see a world in which where you can't do both. On one session do a barbell bent over row, on the other do a dumbbell bent over row. But then moving on, so we've done a bit of legs, a bit of back, mostly the posterior chain. Those are the most important ones for those. You've got things like shrugs as well. I feel like shrugs and rack pulls sometimes get grouped together as like a back thickness cherry on top kind of thing, but I feel like the shrugs might be a bit irrelevant if you're training the deadlifts and the bent over rows and rack pulls on their own. So maybe throw those in if you do have really underdeveloped traps, but I doubt it if you've progressively overloaded all those other exercises already. So then other things we'd have would be, for the posterior and the back, we'd have hip thrusts. So I know we've said a hip hinge, like a deadlift or an RDL or all those, but then a hip thrust, as in like a glute drive or an actual hip thrust with the barbell on your hips or the dumbbell on your hips or any which way of those. If you feel like you need more glutes and you're not getting that from the squats and the deadlifts, you can throw in a hip thrust as well. But I'd say the hip thrust and the shrug are like the movement patterns that would only really be if you've not made the progress you wanted to on those areas already. So moving on to the front of the body, because we've pretty much covered the posterior chain and the legs. In terms of the exercises you need, we're looking at some form of incline pressing. So I've purposely used the word incline pressing because I feel like horizontal or flat pressing, like a flat bench press or a flat dumbbell press or a flat machine press, are now pretty much like second fiddle to incline pressing in terms of everything I've seen. The incline press allows you to get more of a stretch. You actually get a deeper starting point on the chest. And this isn't just like, oh no, the incline's better for the upper pec. The incline is better for all of the pec than flat pressing. So there's that to consider. So if you've got more of a stretch, you've got more activation, you've got more stimulus, you've got more room to grow. And more importantly, it's more focused on the incline, the upper pecs. So obviously you've got your sternular heads and your clavicular heads of your chest, and the clavicular one is usually the smaller one. So I'd say the most important sort of like pressing movement pattern is going to be the incline one as opposed to the flat one. I know the flat one is the one where people put the most weight on and they lift the most weight, but if you make incline your focus, you make the incline the deadlift of your chest, it's definitely going to grow. And then another movement pattern for the chest and the pressing is the dips, weighted dips or machine dips. It depends. If you can't do bodyweight dips yet, then you can't do weighted dips yet. So start with the machine dips, get bigger, do bodyweight dips, get bigger, do weighted dips. And those are great for your triceps. Those are great for your chest. You can sort of vary on a dip bar, especially ones where the bars aren't parallel, they go out or in. You can choose to do a wider grip or a narrower grip on your dips, and you can choose to lean forward more and hit more chest, or be more upright and hit more triceps. So there's a lot of variation in how you can get those dips to work your body. I'd just be careful with going too deep and overloading and overstretching your shoulders, which is one thing I see a lot of people say, that the dips are bad for the shoulders. But if you go down slowly and feel a nice stretch, you should be able to avoid hurting your shoulders. And a lot of the times the actual just meat of your arm gets in the way letting you go any deeper than wouldn't be necessary, but maybe that's just a me thing. Some people, it hurts their shoulders, but I find dips, I like quite a nice stretch. I enjoy them quite nicely. So yeah, you've got incline press and dips, and then you'd have some form of fly for the chest. So be looking at probably again an incline fly, if you like an incline dumbbell fly, or a pec deck done in an incline based way where you feel the upper chest, because usually when you're working the upper chest you're working all the chest as well. But I can argue that you can definitely do flat flies or cable flies or any kind of fly where it's an isolation of the chest and you come off of it and the only thing that feels like it's been worked is your chest. So not in an ego-y way where you feel your shoulders or your triceps or anything else coming in, but just an isolation. If you can load up the flies and you go from lifting, 10 kilo dumbbells on your incline flies to 20 or more, you're going to have a bigger and bigger and bigger chest. These are the movements that I say are the most important to progressively overload on. So obviously we're looking at, as the months and the years go by, the amount of weight your incline pressing is going up, the amount of weight dangling off you when you do your dips is going up, and then your chest and your shoulders and your triceps are also blowing up. So those are the important things to progressively overload. As well as if we're in the pushing movements and those upper body ones, the beach body ones, we'll look at like a lateral raise for the side of your shoulder. This is the real one that's important for actually creating that width and that illusion of size, is the side of the shoulder, the medial delt. If you really wanted to put size anywhere, it would be there. The meaty delts on the side is what makes you look wider. It's what makes you look bigger. It's what gives you that V taper. As you know, the wider you are on the top, the narrower you look on the bottom. The V taper, the waist to shoulder ratio, it's the pretty important one. So improving the lateral raise, progressively overloading that, lifting more and more weight on the dumbbells, on the cables, on the crucifix cable. There's a dozen different exercises for the lateral raises. Just pick one that you like, load up the weight on it, find another you like, load up the weight on it, and your shoulders will eventually grow. It's not a case of spamming lateral raises like some people say, where they do like 10 sets of them in a workout or anything like that. These are the movements you want to progressively overload, as I say. So the logbook needs to show clearly that the amount of weight is going up in the twofold progression, and that you're getting stronger and stronger on these lifts, and therefore the muscles that do the lift are getting bigger and bigger and bigger. So that's how those ones are going to work around. So for the shoulders, chest, back, legs, the posterior chain, we've pretty much covered that. But then something I see people that I myself not a big fan of progressively overload as well is a shoulder press, which is unfortunately not training the medial delt as much as you might think. With it being called a shoulder press, it is more just the front delt, which is already getting worked quite a bit with the other pressing movements you're probably already doing. So a shoulder press, overhead shoulder press, might already be quite redundant in the sense of like the shrugs and the thrusts are redundant. But if you feel like your front delts for any reason are underdeveloped, or your triceps are underdeveloped, or you just really fancy and you really enjoy overhead pressing, doing it seated with a barbell, standing with a barbell, seated with dumbbells, on the Smith machine, on a shoulder press plate loaded machine, on a shoulder press pin loaded machine if you have one, why not knock yourself out if you enjoy it. The front delts are already most people's least underdeveloped or most overdeveloped part. So because of all the pressing they already do, they already get worked when you do your benches and your machine presses and your plate loaded presses, your incline plate press, incline machine press, incline cable press. The standard bro chest day that I've seen people do that I find quite funny is they'll do like a flat bench, and then they'll do an incline bench, and then they'll do a decline bench, and then they'll do a flat fly, then they'll do an incline fly, and then they'll do a decline fly. And it's like, just pick one, like pick your poison. The incline's the best. Do that. Do your dips. Do your flies. Great session. Boom, boom, boom. It's only 3 things, isn't it? Incline press, incline flies, dips. You get a huge chest, hopefully. And then in terms of the other important muscles to train, we obviously got your arms. Which ones are we progressively overloading for your arms? We've got like a barbell curl. You can imagine you can lift the most weight on a barbell curl for any bicep exercise. That might not be the best for the biceps, but it could be the one you can progressively overload the most. If you're looking at the one to be the best to also progressively overload, I'd say it would probably be an easy bar free weight preacher curl, not an easy bar preacher curl machine, but the free bar with the plates on the sides version, and get that nice big stretch, get those nice big biceps. Big arms do come from the preacher. especially with free weight. But you could also do an easy bar curl without the preacher. You could do dumbbell curls with a preacher or dumbbell curls free weight. But as long as you're not swinging around, as long as you're doing the twofold progression and progressively overloading and lifting more and more weight, bigger and bigger dumbbells, more and more plates on the side, your biceps are going to grow. It's just the way it goes. And then vice versa for the triceps. The dips are the bench of the triceps, really. So if you're already doing those, you should be getting plenty of tricep growth. But then obviously we want to hone in. There's 3 heads to the triceps. There's quite a lot going on up there. Anything where your hands are coming up and behind and over your head, so the behind the head tricep movements, those are the ones that are best, really. So you want to choose something that feels comfortable to do with that. That might not be with a dumbbell, because you end up hitting the back of your head as you get to the point of lifting enough weight. It might not be with a free weight, as in an easy bar, like a French press or a behind the head skull crusher that some people can do and enjoy. It might not be with a barbell, because it's quite hard to get a barbell behind the back of your head. So really, for the behind the back of your heads, you'd be looking at probably a cable, something like a rope that you start close and wide, or an easy bar on a cable where you go up and you press with your triceps. So that would be one of the ones for the triceps. And then the other would be some form of either a JM press or a French press or a skull crusher. Depends on the sort of like the wrist mobility and the elbow mobility and which one feels best, because some people JM press, they feel like, my elbows really hurt. JM press on the Smith is good. I like JM press on the Smith machine, but some people really don't like it. Easy bar, skull crushers, that's a bit easier on the wrists for some people, but sometimes they end up just flaring their elbows more. And then French press as well, but a press like that is good. A behind the head press is good. A dip is good. And then if you're really needing more, some kind of single arm, long form, swoopy cable business where you start high and low, or 2 hands and you start high and end low, like just a classic cable tricep push down with whatever handle you feel most comfortable with, whether it's better bilateral or unilateral, as we say. As long as this movement's being progressively overloaded, those triceps are going to grow. So I think I've listed most of the exercises I can think of that are important to progressively overload. Let me just quickly, go up and fertile in my brain and think, because I've extended the list that I've written down there on YouTube on notes there. But if I was going to say other things to progressively overload would be your calves. At some point you need to find a calf machine that you like, whether it's a standard donkey kick sort of calf resistance machine or a seated calf machine, one of each really. A seated one where your legs are bent and one where your legs are straight, or standing and a seated. But either way, you need a bent leg and you need a straight leg, and you need to progressively overload those for those calves. Definitely, please, the calves are important. I think that's definitely something that nobody really trains it the same as everything else. Calves, they train as like a different muscle. Yeah, this is a lot of things I see, that the calves and the abs and the forearms, people say they're like completely different muscles, that they're like, oh yeah, you grow your everything else doing progressive overload training and lifting more and more weight, except your calves, except your abs, except your forearms. You need to do like really high volume, loads and loads of reps on your abs, like loads and loads of reps on your calves, loads and loads of reps on your forearms to grow them. And I'm like, I'm sure there must be something to this. Like, why would everyone pick up something that's not there to be picked up? Why would they all have the wrong end of the stick? But you can progressively overload those calf movements. It might feel a bit weird to do like a 4-rep set of calves. So, in terms of the practicality, the higher reps probably make more sense, because why are you going to put on like 12 plates on a leg press to do your calves? That might be where it comes from. So maybe just pin loaded exercises for the calves, so that you're not there wasting your time putting stuff on there for your calves. But it's not a waste of time if it improves your physique. So there's that to think about. And then with abs as well, people are there like, oh no, don't do it with weight, because you'll thicken up your waist. I don't know about that. That might be a misunderstanding, that they think maybe big obliques makes it look like you have a big waist, like the thick part of the side of the abs. But the actual 6-pack in the middle, if you train that and you progressively overload that, it's just going to give you a deeper, more defined set of abs, as opposed to a thicker set. It might, like from the side, it might thicken up a little bit, but you'll have a deeper six pack and a more defined six pack from the side. Regardless if it's thicker, it'll probably look better as opposed to like a weaselly little narrow waist from the side where it looks like you're like vacuumed and really thin. That might not be the best look as opposed to a really thick and solid, strong set of abs. And then from the front, I think people are worried about the obliques giving the waist more width visually. So maybe don't progressively overload your obliques, but we're talking at like the limit of where, you know, at the point where your abs are like so big that they make your waist look big. This is either a problem with you're not lean enough, or like you've just like completely like overeaten and you've actually got like a distended gut with abs on top of it kind of thing. I don't know where the cases are. I've not seen enough examples where people are saying like, oh, here's the before picture, and it's somebody with like a really narrow, lovely V taper, and it's like, when he trained his abs for a year solid, and then it's just like a complete blown out mess. It's usually a case of as they train their abs, they look deeper, they look more sharp, they look more defined, regardless of the body fat. So there's that to think about. You can progressively overload your abs without worrying about the thickness of your waist. I'm definitely sure of that. And you can progressively overload, train your forearms as well. You can find exercises to lift more and more weights on those. If you so desire, bigger and bigger forearms, more and more abs, more and more calves. Those are exercises you need to look at doing as well. So for the abs, I'd be looking at something like a cable crunch, where you pin loaded cables, you know, on the cable stack, where you go, you know, put more and more weight. As the pin goes deeper and deeper, you're lifting more and more weights, your abs are getting stronger. Same with the calves. As you go deeper and deeper in the pin, you're getting more and more. And then with forearms, forearm training's never been a thing I've really looked into that much, but I can't really speak to which exercises feel best, but I know of them and how it's like the wrist twists on the cables, and then things like that. I'm not the forearm guy. Don't ask me about training forearms. I will get around to it, but those are the ones you train for the abs and the calves anyway. A bent leg and a straight leg calf press, and then some kind of cable crunch for your abs to progressively overload the weight. And then if you really like the ab training side of things and you're there like, oh, I don't want to progressively overload it, I don't know why, because, you know, as you get more and more crunches in your sets, more and more hanging leg raises in your sets, it's just becoming like an endurance thing as opposed to a hypertrophy thing, and more of like a cardio thing as opposed to like a growing thing. So there's that to worry about as well with the ab training, if you just end up doing like a trillion sets. And same with like, that's why some exercises just aren't good. They're not on this list for the progressively overload thing, because there is no way to overload them. Stuff like planks, you can put more and more weight on your back to a point. You can hold the plank for longer and longer and longer to a point. Push-ups, you can put more weight on your back to a point. You can do more and more reps to a point, but then it becomes impractical. So these are exercises where it's easy to put more plates on the bar, deeper into the stack, the weight stack, and then you get a gym pin and you put plates on there. And those sort of things, you get bigger and bigger dumbbells until you're on the biggest dumbbells in the gym. And by that point, you're already pretty big and you can look at switching out the exercises for different versions. But until you've maxed out all the machines in the gym, until you've maxed out all the dumbbells in the gym, don't worry about it. Focus on that first. Max the machines, max the dumbbells, and then look at getting those barbell exercises in, like the squats, the deadlifts, the bent over rows, and start getting as much on that bar as you can, and you will make progress. That's how it goes. That's how it works. I think we'll keep it nice and short and sweet, and that's the way we're going to grow those muscles. Just get more and more weight on the bar eventually until you need a bigger bar, which I don't think anyone's reached yet. So we'll find that point one day. I hope I do. So yeah, that's everything for you guys. Thank you ever so much. I'll see you.